Every nation has a red line, a point where patience ends and action begins. Israel just crossed theirs. But the real question isn't what they did. It's why they did it now, and what they already knew that the rest of the world didn't. There's a detail buried inside this story that almost nobody is talking about. A detail that suggests this conflict isn't really about missiles or nuclear facilities or even Iran.
Move the stretcher, let's
It's about
let's
something
go.
much older, much larger, and much more dangerous.
Suspect still at large.
And
All
once you
units be
see
advised.
it, you can't unsee it. For decades, Israel and Iran have been locked in a war that most people never fully see. It lives in the shadows. Assassinated nuclear scientists found dead in Tehran's streets. A computer virus so sophisticated, it physically destroyed Iranian centrifuges without a single soldier crossing a border. Proxy armies funded, armed, and pointed like loaded weapons across Lebanon,
All
Syria,
units, hold
Yemen,
at checkpoint
and
X.
Iraq.
Proceed only when
This wasn't
authorized.
peace.
Maintain radio
It was
silence.
controlled pressure, managed
هنا.
tension.
إنه
A war
يتحرك.
fought just below the threshold of total escalation. Both sides knew the rules. Both sides respected the ceiling. Until they didn't. But here's where it gets strange. The strikes that just happened weren't a surprise in the traditional sense. Intelligence services across 3 continents had been watching the signals for months. The pattern was visible. The trajectory was clear. And yet, when the moment finally arrived, the world still reacted like it came out of nowhere. That tells you something important. It means the official story, that this was a reaction, a response, a retaliation, may only be part of what's actually true. Something doesn't add up.
Confirming
Iran had been
stabilization
pushing
sequence.
boundaries for years. Long before these strikes,
We have a
Iranian-backed
fluctuation in
forces
Sector
had
Gamma.
targeted Israeli civilians with rockets, drones, and artillery. Iranian proxies had killed American soldiers in the region. Iran had launched direct ballistic missile attacks on Israeli soil, an act that, in any other era of modern history, would have triggered an immediate and overwhelming response.
Markets are crashing. Get me
But
the
Israel
finance minister.
waited.
This is not
Measured,
a drill. I repeat, this is not a
calibrated.
drill.
Why?
We are taking
Because
decisive
restraint
action
isn't
to ensure
weakness.
the safety and security
In
of all our
geopolitics,
citizens.
restraint is strategy.
It doesn't make sense.
And strategy
the timeline
means
is
you're
broken,
waiting for the
and
right
these faces
moment.
don't connect.
Not just
We're missing
the right
something
reason.
crucial.
So what made this moment different? That's the question that unlocks everything else. Here's what the timeline actually shows. In the months before the strikes, 3 things happened simultaneously. Hezbollah, Iran's most powerful external weapon, the force that had deterred Israeli action for decades with 100,000 missiles pointed south, had been systematically degraded. Its command structure was dismantled. Its leadership was eliminated. Its communication networks were compromised. For the first time in 20 years, Iran's most dangerous deterrent was genuinely weakened. At the same time, Iran's air defense grid, the protective shield around its most sensitive infrastructure, was exposed as having critical vulnerabilities. And simultaneously, Iran's nuclear enrichment had reportedly crossed a specific technical threshold. Not a weapon, not yet, but close enough that the gap between where Iran was and where Iran could be was now measured in weeks. Not months, not years, weeks. 3 things, all at once. And this changes everything. Because in military and intelligence strategy, there's a concept called a window of opportunity. It's the brief period when the stars align, when your enemy is weaker than usual, when your own capabilities are at their peak, and when the cost of inaction begins to outweigh the cost of action. Those windows are rare, They
move at
open
dawn, the
slowly
assets are
and
in
they
place.
close
Are you
fast.
certain the location is secure?
And some analysts believe that Israel's leadership
Positive, no
looked
one
at
followed
those
us.
three converging factors and concluded something sobering. That this window, this specific
copy,
combination of
Command?
a
It's
degraded
fucked.
proxy network, an exposed defense grid, and an accelerating nuclear timeline would never be this wide again. The attack wasn't just a response, it was a calculation. And here's where the global picture starts to come into focus, because the impact of what happened doesn't end at the Iranian border. Oil markets reacted within hours. Brent crude spiked. Shipping insurance in the Gulf of Oman surged to levels not seen in years. The Strait of Hormuz, the narrow passage through which roughly 1/5 of the world's entire oil supply travels every single day, became the most watched body of water on the planet overnight. A disruption there doesn't just affect energy prices in London or New York. It ripples into food supply chains, manufacturing costs, and inflation in countries that have no stake in this conflict at all. Nations in Asia, Africa, and South America woke up to a crisis they didn't start and can't control. Russia and China moved carefully. Both have deep economic ties to Iran. Both have been watching the erosion of Western-led global order with strategic interest. A weakened or destabilized Iran reshapes energy markets that feed into their own geopolitical leverage. It's possible that what happened here wasn't just a strike on Iran. It was a message aimed at every power watching from the outside. A message about what the new rules of the region look like and who intends to write them. The Gulf states went
The Eastern Front is
conspicuously
collapsing.
quiet.
We need to
Saudi
reroute the Third
Arabia,
Fleet
the
immediately.
UAE, Bahrain, nations
about
that
the
have spent
civilian
years
corridors?
quietly building economic and security bridges toward Israel while carefully managing their public posture. Their silence was loud and
Authorization
deliberate.
confirmed. Launch the sequence
But
now.
here's the twist that most coverage is completely missing. What if the nuclear program was never the primary target? What if it was the justification, not the reason? Consider the broader architecture of what's been happening in the Middle East over the past several years. The Abraham Accords, quiet Saudi-Israeli
Oil spike
normalization
confirmed
talks,
on the markets.
a new
It's
regional
moving too
framework
fast, we can't
slowly
keep
taking
up.
shape,
Get me the
one
data
built
now.
on
Brent crude is
shared
through the
economic
roof.
interests, shared security concerns about Iran, and shared access to American military guarantees. A framework that, if completed, would fundamentally isolate Iran. Not through war, through irrelevance. Iran understood this, and some analysts believe that Iran's escalation, the direct missile strikes, the proxy provocations, the pressure campaigns, was not primarily military in nature. It was political. It was an attempt to shatter that emerging coalition, to force Arab states back into a posture of public opposition to Israel, to make normalization politically unsustainable, to blow up the architecture before it could be finished. If
What
that
is
reading
this?
is correct, then Israel's response wasn't simply about self-defense. It was about defending the future map of the region itself. It was a statement that the new architecture, however fragile, however incomplete, would be protected. That the window for disrupting it had closed. This raises a question that nobody has fully answered. Did Iran's escalation accelerate exactly the outcome it was trying to prevent? Now, let's look at this from three different angles, because the truth here is almost certainly not singular. The first interpretation is the official one. Iran launched direct attacks on Israeli territory. Israel exercised its legitimate right to self-defense. The targets were military and nuclear in nature. The goal was degradation, not regime change. This was proportional. This was necessary. This was reactive. The second interpretation is strategic. The direct attacks gave Israel political cover for a strike that had already been decided. The window was open. The decision had been made. The missile barrage provided the justification the operation needed to proceed with international legitimacy intact. The timing wasn't determined by the attacks. It was confirmed by them.
The projections
The
clearly
third
indicate
interpretation
sustained growth
is the one that
and market
operates at the
dominance in
longest
upcoming
time
fiscal
horizon.
year.
This wasn't really about Iran's missiles or Iran's nuclear program. This was about the next 20 years of Middle Eastern power structure, about who controls the terms of regional security, about whether a Tehran-centered axis of influence survives into the next decade or gets permanently contained, about whether the emerging Arab-Israeli strategic alignment consolidates or collapses. The strike was less a military event and more a defining geopolitical statement, one aimed not at Iranian generals, but at every capital on Earth
All
that is
agencies
calculating
notify
where to
JCS
place its
immediately.
next bet. All three of these interpretations could be true at the same time. In geopolitics, the stated reason and the real reason are almost never identical, and the full reason is almost never simple. Here's what we're left with.
The international
Iran
community has
is
imposed
damaged.
new sanctions
Its
targeting
nuclear
the nation's
timeline
oil
has been
revenue,
disrupted
causing
by how
significant
much
disruption.
no one publicly agrees. Its air defenses have been exposed in ways that intelligence services around the world are now studying carefully. Its proxy network is at its weakest point in a generation. But Iran is not broken. It is not gone. And history does not offer many examples of a nation with Iran's deep sense of civilizational identity absorbing a strike of this magnitude and choosing quiet acceptance. It recalculates. It adapts. It finds new leverage. That has been the pattern for 40 years, and there is no obvious reason it changes now. So here is the question that nobody in any government, any intelligence agency, or any newsroom can honestly answer right now. Did these strikes eliminate the threat, or did they simply define the next phase of it? Because the Middle East that existed before these strikes is gone. The rules that governed the shadow war, the careful calibration, the managed escalation, the unspoken ceiling, those rules have been rewritten. What replaces them is being decided right now in conversations we're not part of by people who will not tell us what they said in rooms that don't appear on any map. And the decisions made in the next 60 days could determine whether what just happened was the moment the fire finally burned out, or the moment it found new fuel.